Welcome back, everybody, to Traversing the Strange World with Peace
and Toodles. That's me.
Today we have something special for you guys.
Today we have something that we've been looking forward to doing since before we started this podcast.
Many moons. Today, well, this is actually going to be an introduction to a deep dive we did on the Gospel of Judas that exists out there.
A gospel highly controversial to anything in Christianity.
Which one would assume given the name, because if you didn't know, Judas was the disciple that betrayed Jesus.
Who was later replaced.
Yes. But before we go into that, we will be giving you guys the Gnostic creation story, because I think that will really shed a lot of light on a lot of the subject matter in the Gospel of Judas. And like personally for me, I did go through the Gospel of Judas before making myself familiar with the Gnostic creation story, and I didn't understand it as well as after.
It is hard to understand without external context, because it is going to explore. It references an alternate creation story. It references beings, other gods higher than the God of the Old Testament. It would be relatively considered blasphemous.
Yes. So the early church fathers, they spoke a lot about Gnosticism, and usually that wouldn't be, like, you don't want to go to the enemies of a certain sect to learn more about that sect. But the church fathers were actually fairly accurate, and compared to for the longest time, we didn't have any Gnostic Gospels at our disposal. But throughout the centuries of archaeology and excavating, searching for evidence to prove the Bible, a lot of archaeologists have uncovered these Gnostic Gospels.
And this isn't even an ancient discovery by any means. It wasn't until 1970 that we discovered the Gospel of Judas.
In the 1940s, when discovering other ones in the amongst the Dead Sea Scrolls, such as the Gospel of Thomas, which we covered on a previous episode.
Which we will reference as we go through Judas. So, the Gospel of Judas, discovered in 1970, in a very sad state, dilapidated and decomposing. It was
sold on the black market
for years. It was sold on the black market until it eventually ended up in New York in a safety deposit box.
In that place, so like in the middle of the desert, when a scroll, I believe this is papyrus, is what it was written on.
Yes,
it's a rather dry climate where everything barely stays the same. Maybe more layers of sand will cover up the material over time, but in the New York storage vault, that's completely different.
It is humid AF out there.
Humid, cold.
Winter, heat, cold, summer, winter, expanding, contracting, condensation, all that stuff.
Needless to say, when they uncovered this text years later, it was covered in mildew. It was falling apart.
It was in the wrong order. Well, the pages weren't even in order because people had supposedly shuffled it around to put the interesting things and the good things at the beginning and the end. So, somebody skipping through it would be like, oh, yeah, it's a pretty cool book. And originally, we know it was written about by Irenaeus, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah,
Irenaeus.
Sorry. In 170 BC, AD, 170 AD, sorry. He wrote about this mysterious gospel, heavily condemning it, and basically calling it heresy and saying that it will hurt your faith to read this. So avoid it at all costs.
So, ladies and gentlemen, put on your knee pads and your elbow pads. That is the knee pads and the elbow pads of your faith, if you do have it. Oh,
I see.
And the helmet as well.
I see where
because
you're
we
going
are
now.
about to dive into some what some would consider heretical material. We are about to dive into the Gnostic creation story.
The Gnostic creation story. So, throw out your idea of God and replace it with what we're going to call the demiurge. Right?
No.
You were... Oh.
No, before that.
Okay, yeah, my bad.
Before that.
That is the God of the Old Testament, according to the Gnostics,
Yes.
is the demiurge. But creation...
A long time ago, nowhere, because there was nothing. There was
that
only
makes sense.
one thing, which was the monad. It was an unknowable, unseeable, invisible source.
Which dwelled in a realm
Of light.
that no angel has ever seen the extent of.
This is the Gnostic God. The Gnostic God, again, not to be confused with agnostic, which your
Sorry for that earlier,
friend
by the way.
Isaiah is. He was unknowable, all seeable. He was just this divine mind that began emanating these archons. These archons were basically the thought bubbles of this infinite divine mind. Bloop, 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 bloop. Which the archons, they're kind of like angels / lower gods, lower deities in the Gnostic theology.
Also never were created. They just came into being out of these clouds.
Yes.
Never being told to manifest, never... Does it say
The
that they were
source-
thought of, or that they just came into being?
Well, okay, so it's not entirely clear, because there's the source, the monad, and then there's the pleroma. The pleroma is often defined as, like, the divine womb.
How?
It's said to be where, like, the realm of where God dwells, or it's also called in the Gospel of Judas, the realm of Barbelo. So there's basically God's wife or feminine counterpart in this scene is perhaps a place. It's called the divine womb, but it's also called a realm. So from this mind in this realm emanates these archons. These archons are like lower deities, and they create their own universes. But
and angels. They create their own angels as well to serve them.
Mm-hmm. And they do it through this process of procreating with the source, the monad. Don't ask me how that works, because I don't know, and I didn't really see in any sources and clear explanation of how that works. But Sophia, which is Greek for wisdom, she's one of these archons, and she tries to create an angel or an archon without the help of the source, without the help of the monad. And from that, she creates this wretched, vile creature.
With blood on his face.
A head of a lion, the body of a snake.
Where's this blood come from?
The face
First
mingled
of all,
with blood, flashing like lightning.
If nothing's physical yet, where does this blood come from?
I think things are physical in this realm. They're not physical, but... Oh, I get what you're saying. This is like a spiritual realm. Where's the blood come from?
Yeah. Yeah, dog.
I don't know, because Gnostics, they often wrote in like numbers and symbols and stuff. So...
Darn gematria.
Even the story, I wonder if it's more like if it's more of like an allegory, if it's more symbolic than an actual creation story.
So this wretched being,
the demiurge,
the source,
Yaldabaoth, it's called by some. There's a few different names for the demiurge within the different Gnostic Gospels. By the way, the two main sources for the Gnostic creation story, if you wanted to do a deep dive yourself would be the Apocalypse of John and the Apocalypse of Adam. All right, back to the story. So she sees this vile, wretched angel that she created. Disgusted and scared, she casts him into the void, which is basically the heavenly garbage bin.
And guess where we get to live?
He is in this void, completely alone, knowing, all infinite, but knowing he's alone. So within the void, within the garbage bin of heaven, the demiurge, he realizes when he thinks he can create. So he begins to create this entire realm. But again, he's not a full god. He's not anything he creates is going to be mingled and corrupted, because that's his nature. That's the nature of the beast. But so he begins to create this world, this realm, Earth as we know it.
Wait a minute. Pause.
Yes.
Isn't it a Gnostic belief that the world is the back of a heavenly being that was killed? How then did this demiurge create it just like that?
I have not heard that. Where'd you hear that?
From something that I read somewhere. And I'm pretty sure that it was Gnostic.
That's so, like, there's a lot of old myths that the beginning of creation in general starts with one god killing another god, and with, like, it's in the Mesopotamian creation story, Marduk kills Tiamat, the great dragon of chaos, and with her body, he creates the new world, as whichever that means. Same with in Nordic mythology, it says that Odin, he created this world with the head of a frost giant that he killed.
Where's the frost giant come from?
We live inside. Oh, I don't know. But basically, the blue dome we see above us, that's the inside of a frost giant's head. We live inside of.
So, do we have an outer space? So the moon landing was fake, is what you're saying. I knew it. You do believe it.
Reality was founded upon that, then absolutely. So, the demiurge, he's in this void.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, he makes this earth as we know it.
Yes.
This form in the void.
And
a form with waters.
This divine being, which is actually Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve were actually one. Adamus. This high being, higher than a lot of the archons, sees what's going on down here in the void, and they descend into the void. Big mistake.
Because weren't they more powerful than the demiurge?
Yes.
And so the demiurge, he's like,
but they're in his playground.
The frick are you doing here?
Yeah, so this
is my house.
He divides Adamus, masculine and feminine side, and turns them into two physical human beings, Adam and Eve, where they're trapped here and they're blind of their godlike nature.
True selves.
Yes.
One might say.
They're trapped here and they're enslaved by the demiurge, Yaldabaoth. So, Sophia, the demiurge's mother, she sees all of this going on down here, and that Adamus was trapped down here. And in basically a move of what seems to be self-sacrifice, because she saw what happened to Adamus, so I would think she knows
what's
going to happen when she goes down here. She descends down into the void, being in the process of descending. She's shattered into sparks of light cast everywhere, all across creation. But in doing so, becomes a part of creation, embedding sparks of light everywhere in everything, including humans.
And the tree.
Yes. She manifests herself into a tree, the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Yaldabaoth finds out about this, isn't too happy with it. Tries to destroy it, but it's made of this heavenly material.
Which is above him.
Yes, which is above him, so he can't destroy it. So he just tells Adam and Eve, do not eat of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And they listen to him.
Because he's like, I don't want you to know how wretched and terrible I am, and what you've come from, and what you could be again, if you come to this knowledge that's available for you. But I just don't want you eating from this tree, because I kind of like you down there, separated and enslaved. Plowing the grounds and stuff.
Rooting by... Well, actually, no.
I guess, yeah, they didn't plow the ground yet.
They were in a paradise, enslaved.
They were naming animals.
Yes, they were in a paradise where they were told it was a paradise. You know, it was an illusion. So at this point, they think they're in a paradise, and they're blind to who they are. And I've heard it said in a few different sources that the being Jesus, that Jesus is, he descends into this realm. But I've heard it said from a couple different sources where he came from. I heard one say that basically, so in the Demiurge's time here, between creating Earth and Adam and Eve descending down into Earth, he created his own archons, his own fallen angels to serve him and, kind of be his henchmen. Well, there's this one that he has knowledge of who Adamus was, and he sees what the Demiurge is doing to them. And so he rebels. The fallen angel rebels against the fallen angel. And in doing so, he leaves. He leaves this realm, and he ascends to, there's 7 heavens. I'm not sure which one it was that he ascends to, but basically, his description, the way he looks, the way he is, the Gnostics, okay, what they would do is if they would take there's a description of God. And, okay, well, like in Ezekiel, he's described as differently than in Genesis. So they'll say that these were actually 2 different gods. And so this fallen angel who rebels, reverse falls, flies up to heaven, up to one of the lower heavens. He's allowed to be guardian of that realm. And his description is he's on this flying chariot. This chariot being pulled by cherubim.
It's a UFO, bro. Which
is a description of God in Ezekiel. And so he's depicted as this one, this lesser God, by living in a lesser heaven, a lower heaven, not the lowest heaven, but so then there's another God in another realm, a lower level of heaven. And he creates Jesus. He sends Jesus down to earth in the form of a snake.
I want to rip my head apart.
And then this snake goes to Adam and Eve and talks Adam and Eve into eating of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And then their eyes are open to the prison that they're in and to who the Demiurge is. So they're cast out of the Garden of Eden. And they're in what we would say is the real world.
So what's the other view of where Jesus came from?
I think that one was where he came directly from, like, the source. Which would probably be whichever, because there were varying sects of Gnostic Christian. There wasn't just one. They had different opinions. The one that believed that he came directly from God, which would be the Pleroma, or Barbalos. Mm-hmm. It's probably the same sect of Gnostics that wrote the Gospel of Judas, because, as we'll see later on in the Gospel of Judas, Judas says, you're from the realm of Barbalo.
And Jesus also says, go into our traditional Bible. Somewhere in one of the Gospels, he says, you do not know me, and you do not know my Father. Because the disciples in the book of Judas, at the very beginning, when they were fasting and making their offerings to God, and Jesus laughs at them, it's because they don't understand. They don't know what they're doing.
So there's a few things that happen after this that...
Wait a minute. Would Jesus be considered Lucifer, the bringer of light, since he was coming to give us this knowledge and tempt us to eat the tree?
Lucifer is an idea that evolved in Christianity much later, I believe. Because it's not entirely biblical. It's not entirely from the Old Testament. Lucifer, so it's a word that's used in Isaiah 14, which is a passage often believed to be talking about Satan and his rebellion against God.
Is that where he is called this,
Lucifer?
Look how you've fallen,
yes.
bright morning star?
Yes.
Okay.
But that in context is talking about King Nebuchadnezzar. Later on, I believe Christians mistranslated that and turned it into a passage about Satan rebelling against God, which isn't a story we'll find anywhere in the Old Testament. And then Lucifer, it's a Latin word that was put in there. It's not in the original. It's not there. But as far as the devil goes, no, there is a devil still. That is he's a servant of the demiurge. Kind of like how, there's this Old Testament depiction of Satan where he's not a fallen angel. He's going into, the counsel of God in the book of Job. And he's kind of depicted as more of a tester, an accuser. Somebody.
Just another bro up there walking around with the heavenly counsel. Goes to God. God's like, check out this dude, Job. You couldn't get him to turn his back on me, no matter what you do to him. And basically ends up giving the devil permission. Just don't kill him, but see if you can make him rebel. Which he never did, by the way.
Killed his entire family, except for his wife. Yeah.
And all of his livestock.
Yeah.
And fields. And servants.
But it does say at the end of the story that he got new sons and daughters.
Yes, and new flocks. They were restored.
Yeah. I'd like to think, though, that the flocks, they're replaceable, but the new sons and daughters, those are kind of humans with personalities and memories. And
I mean, maybe it was the same people. Maybe their souls were just put back into new...
Reincarnated?
Exactly. Perhaps they even had memories of their former lives. So they could just resume as if nothing happened.
That would be a happy ending indeed.
It would be a happy ending. So Jesus comes as a serpent.
Yes.
So what's the point of him coming in the New Testament then? If he got us to eat of the tree, then...
Ultimately to reveal greater knowledge, because the basis of Gnosticism is not that salvation is attained through faith, but
acquisition of hidden knowledge.
Yes, enlightenment.
So when Jesus came in the New Testament, was that just to show how much of a fallacy religion was? No one goes to the Father except through him.
Yes. It was to... It wasn't to die on the... They don't put an emphasis on his, the passion, his crucifixion. It was to come as a person to fully create the Gnostic tradition. Hand the hidden secrets to the disciples and for them to continually hand the hidden knowledge down to us.
But according to Judas, all the disciples except Judas didn't know what the hairy they're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And only Judas did, but Judas would end up being cursed. How you like that?
Well, we could... Do you want to get into the Gospel of Judas right now, then?
Should we make that the part 2? We're 30 minutes.
Oh, we're only 30 minutes in?
approximately 26.
That'd be a pretty short episode if we quit now.
Well, let's start the Gospel of Judas. I just so happened to
There are a few things that happen in the Gnostic Genesis story that they're not. I wouldn't say they're entirely like. After that, Eve gets defiled actually by like these archons, these fallen angels to like punish her for. And then so they impregnate her, and Cain and Abel are actually the Adam and they're sons of fallen angels.
Nephilim? Dog. So Adam's not their dad?
No.
Isn't that what Genesis says, though?
That's what Genesis says, yeah.
Well, crikey, we have some contradictions.
Oh, I think we have a lot of contradictions.
That's an understatement. So I got the Gospel of Judas right here. And it appears to be just slightly longer than the Gospel of Thomas, which we read.
Yes.
But this, we can take it in bigger chunks at a time.
Well, and
just read it?
We probably will do a part 2.
I think so.
Yeah.
Well, we gave the history about, it was originally found in Egypt, went through black market, long story short, ended up in safety deposit box.
It's written in Coptic.
And it was then found, reassembled, translated, and released to the public under some researchers, amongst whom was one of my guys I love reading.
Bart Ehrman.
Bart Ehrman. Some very untraditional beliefs in a lot of his writing.
Well, wait, what are you talking about? Untraditional.
He explores topics that are my typical non-denominational faith doesn't really like.
I was going to
exploring.
say, like, he's pretty mainstream in terms of like New Testament scholars. Like, he's not really putting out any like, any theories out there that are like controversial in that sense. But yes. To the common narrative that most evangelicals are used to, they're not going to be used to a lot of the conclusions that Bart would come to.
So this is the secret account of the revelation that Jesus spoke in conversation with Judas Iscariot during a week, 3 days before he celebrated Passover. Here we go. When Jesus appeared on earth, he performed miracles and great wonders for the salvation of humanity. And since some walked in the way of righteousness, while others walked in their transgressions, the 12 disciples were called. He began to speak with them about the mysteries beyond the world of what would take place at the end. Often he did not appear to his disciples himself, but he was found among them as a child. So does this mean childlike? As in innocence?
He was found among them as a child.
In innocence, or literally as a child?
I think it's talking about his birth. He was born. He became a human.
He was found among his disciples as a child, though.
Yeah, I'd say it's probably talking about his innocence then.
So, on we go. One day, he was with his disciples in Judea, and he found them gathered together and seated in pious observance. When he approached his disciples, gathered together and seated, and offering a prayer of thanksgiving over the bread, he laughed.
He laughed at them.
Which is a repeat theme that we're going to see in this book.
And if you remember in the Gospel of Thomas, he also laughs at his disciples. Usually at his disciples. Gnostic Jesus loves to laugh.
I like to laugh.
Am I Gnostic? No depiction of Jesus laughing in our canonical Gospels.
So the disciples asked him, "Why are you laughing? We've done what's right." He answered and said to them, "I'm not laughing at you. You're not doing this because of your own will, but because it is through this that your God will be praised."
So your God, talking about the God of the Old Testament, the God that,
because he doesn't say our God or my God.
Yes,
he says yours, which is significant when it's that specific in our canonical gospel or canonical Bible.
What do you mean?
Our Father, my Father, your Father.
Yes.
So we must assume that it means something here too. So they said, Master, you are the Son of our God. And Jesus said to them, how do you know me? Truly I say to you, no generation of the people that are among you will know me. So here's hopeful, light-spreading Jesus telling us that we're all doomed because we can't know anything. Mm-hmm. As if hidden knowledge is out there that we haven't found. Just backing up the Gnostic belief more. When the disciples heard this, they started getting angry and infuriated and began blaspheming against him in their hearts. When Jesus observed their lack of understanding, he said to them, why has this agitation led you to anger? Your God is within you. And ... Text has been erased from history.
Yeah.
A lot of it's missing. So, your God is within you and have provoked you to anger within your souls. Let any one of you who is strong enough among human beings bring out the perfect human and stand before my face. All of them said, we have the strength. But their spirits did not dare to stand before him except for Judas. He was able to stand before him, but he still couldn't look him in the eyes, and he turned his face away. So Jesus is like, let's see one of you guys create man. Who can do it? Who has the power of creation? And yet, none of them do. Except Judas, who walked forward but still couldn't look him in the face. There was still some kind of disconnect here. Inability to do what Jesus said.
I don't think it was that as much as like reverence, because as we'll see, Judas has some hidden insight.
Which is what he says in the next sentence.
Yes.
Jesus said to him, I know who you are and where you've come from. You are from the immortal realm of Barbelo, and I am not worthy to utter the name of the one who has sent you. Which makes sense because Jesus later says that no one's ever uttered his name.
Yes.
So it's like, duh.
Not worthy because he doesn't know it.
Exactly. Knowing that Judas was reflecting upon something that was exalted, Jesus said to him, step away from the others, and I shall tell you the mysteries of the kingdom. It is possible for you to reach it, but you will grieve a great deal. For someone else will replace you in order that the 12 disciples may again come to completion with their God. Jesus said to him, when will you tell me these things, and when will the great day of light dawn for the generation? But when he said this, Jesus left. ... To be continued. Actually, not really, because he never comes back and answers the dang question. But this is interesting again, because he says the disciples' God is their God. And something has to come to completion since Judas is the deceiver and the betrayer, and he's not part of the 12 eventually, that he'll be replaced, so there's another 12 disciples, to bring something to completion with the God of the disciples, insinuating that Jesus' God and the disciples' God are two different things, going back to the demiurge of the Old Testament and the light kingdom that Jesus came from. So Jesus comes back the next morning, and the disciples see him, and they're like, Master, where did you go? And what did you do when you left us? Because they're like overly obsessed boyfriends. Jesus said to them, I went to another great and holy generation. His disciples said to him, Lord, what is the great generation that is superior to us and holier than us, that is now not in these realms? Jesus never said he left the realm, but they knew it.
I don't know if he did. He was saying that he did leave the realm. Because, like, generations... Think of the generations as, like, the archons. They are being generated from the monad.
And perhaps this was common knowledge at the time.
And so he may have been referring to speaking to angels.
So when Jesus heard this, he laughed and said to them, Why are you thinking in your hearts about the strong and holy generation? Truly I say to you, no one born of this aeon will see that generation, and no host of angels of the stars will rule over that generation, and no person of mortal birth can associate with it, because this generation does not come from missing text, which has become missing text. The generation of people among you is from the generation of humanity. Missing
Think
text.
of a generation as a creation.
By which you rule. Interesting. I feel like there's a lot to unpack here, but I don't know how to unpack it. So there's this other generation that it doesn't say anything about human, angels, demons, beings, gods, nothing. It just says another strong and holy generation over which no angels will rule.
Because usually I think when we think of generations in terms of what something, Jesus he's talking about a generation like we would, like Generation Z,
Like years,
Yeah,
time-based,
yeah.
yes. Yeah. But here, perhaps, like you were saying, generations is just a different realm, different reality.
Or different beings.
Bring in string theory. I wonder if UFOs can go from realm to realm. They say Bigfoot is an interdimensional, time-traveling, invisible creature. Maybe he knows something.
Maybe he's an Archon.
Perhaps. So, when his disciples heard this, they each were troubled in spirit. They could not say a word. Another day, Jesus came up to them. They said, Master, we have seen you in a vision, for we have had great dreams. He said, why have you gone into hiding? And in the middle of that, there's a lot of missing text also, so it's kind of rough to fully explain. So next, they describe a vision they have of the temple, and this is pretty interesting. They said, we've seen a great house with a large altar in it and 12 men. They are priests. We would say a name, and a crowd of people is waiting at that altar until the priests receive the offerings, but we kept waiting. Jesus said, what are the priests like? They said some, missing text, 2 weeks, some sacrifice their own children, others their wives, in praise and humility with each other. Some sleep with men, some are involved in slaughter, some commit a multitude of sins and deeds of lawlessness. And the men who stand before the altar invoke your name, and in all the deeds of their deficiency, their sacrifices are brought to completion. After they said this, they were quiet, for they were troubled. Troubled at their own story that they told. So people in this temple, the priests, doing all kinds of Molochian sounding things. Mm-hmm. Sacrificing each other. Gay
Sacrificing
sex.
their kids.
So what is this temple and where is it?
See, I believe he's referring to the future church. As we'll go on to see, he says it's you.
Doing things in Jesus' name that are actually evil.
Yes. And
I've never been to a church that sacrifices children. Just saying. Not that I'm aware of.
So that's what the Gnostics are saying about many of the people who ended up inheriting the teachings of Jesus. Like Jesus is Jesus back then wasn't Jesus as we know him today yet. But it's just like when one of the church fathers would slander the Gnostic faith. They would say they do this, they do that. Accusing somebody of child sacrifice, that's like the worst thing you could accuse them of. Like, obviously it's not an accurate depiction of the church fully, but what I'm saying is the gospel is saying that is what would be considered Orthodox Christianity. The Christians, the people who misunderstand the teachings of Jesus.
Who think they're doing right, but they're not.
Yes.
So here, next, Jesus offers an allegorical interpretation of the vision of the temple. Jesus said to them, why are you troubled? Truly I say to you, all the priests who stand before that altar invoke my name. Again I say to you, my name has been written on this, missing text, of the generations of the stars through the human generations, and they have planted trees without fruit in my name in a shameful manner. Jesus also said, those you have seen, receiving the offerings at the altar, this is who you are. That is the God you serve, and you are those 12 men you have seen. The cattle you have seen brought for sacrifice are the many people you lead astray before the altar. I will stand and make use of my name in this way, and generations of the pious will remain loyal to him. Sorry, he doesn't say I will stand. It just says ... will stand. After him, another man will stand there from the fornicators, and another will stand there from the slayers of children, and another from those who sleep with men, and those who abstain, and the rest of the people of pollution and lawlessness and error, and those who say, we are like angels. They are the stars that bring everything to its conclusion. For to the human generations it has been said, look, God has received your sacrifice from the hands of a priest, that is, a minister of error. But it is the Lord of the universe, who commands, on the last day they will be put to shame. Jesus said, stop sacrificing, missing text, which you have, missing text, over the altar, since they are over your stars, and your angels have already come to their conclusion there. So let them be ensnared before you, and let them go. About 15 lines of missing text here. A baker cannot feed all creation under heaven, and to them, and then a bunch of missing text that's not clear. Brought to conclusion. What do you think that means with the stars?
Repeat that again.
Where it's, Jesus said, stop sacrificing which you have over the altar, since they are over your stars, and your angels have already come to their conclusion there. So Jesus also tells Judas that his star led him astray. And then this mentions stars also, that the angels brought them to their conclusion.
Yes, I think when it refers to a star, it's referring to an angel.
Or is it that spark of divine light, maybe?
No, because, like, that was a pretty common depiction in early Christianity. Like, later on, a lot of the church fathers would come to say, like, the star that it talks about in the Gospel of Matthew, that the Magi followed, they'd say that that was an angel. They actually were very, like, adamant about saying that it was an angel, not a star, because they didn't want to be associated with, like, astrology, and that being an aspect of the faith.
And a little earlier than that too, when it's talking about the slayers of children, those who sleep with men, those who abstain, the rest of the people of pollution, and those who say we are like angels, they are the stars that bring everything to its conclusion. So what is this conclusion? Death, the end of prophecies, the end of creation.
I would say, I don't know.
Yeah, me too. This is what we need to bring an academic on here to talk about.
The Gospel of Judas.
Yeah. There's so much here that I feel like we can read it and discuss it a little, but to do it justice, whew.
But, I don't think these folks saw a podcast titled Traversing the Strange World with Peace and Toodles and thought, these guys are clearly academic. So, you know what you were getting into when you clicked on this podcast. Don't blame us for your bad decisions.
Next, Judas asks Jesus about that generation and human generations. So Judas said to him being Jesus, Rabbi, what kind of fruits does this generation produce? Jesus said, the souls of every human generation will die. When these people, however, have completed the time of the kingdom and the Spirit leaves them, their bodies will die, but their souls will be alive, and they will be taken up. Judas said, and what will the rest of the human generations do? Jesus said, it is impossible to sow seed on rock and harvest its fruit. This is also the way the defiled generation, missing text, and corruptible Sophia, missing text, the hand that has created mortal people, so that their souls go up to the eternal realms above. Truly I say to you, missing text, angel, missing text, power will be able to see that, missing text, these to whom, missing text, holy generations. After Jesus said this, he departed. Corruptible Sophia. So why is Sophia corruptible? I thought she was on the good side. Isn't that wisdom?
Well, he might have been saying that she was corrupted in the sense she's trapped here. Sophia, the divine spark, is trapped here. Light enshrouded in darkness.
So every human soul is going to die. When these people have completed the time of the kingdom and the Spirit leaves them, their body will die, but their souls will be alive. So there's a spirit that perhaps keeps us alive with our souls, that when it departs, our souls go up. So our spirits and souls are different things.
I would say that...
Interesting. Perhaps consciousness being the spirit.
And the spark being the soul.
Is a soul conscious? Can a soul think and be? Or is it just a little... Because like electricity, you know what I mean? Like electricity is, but it's inanimate. It moves and it has being. But does it think? Is it sentient? No. Is that what our soul's like? Just a power source? Interesting. However, so it's impossible to sow seed on rock and harvest its fruit. So I guess that insinuates that our lives are meaningless. We're down here in bodies with souls, but not doing anything good with it.
No. So unfortunately, I believe the thought within the Gnostics was that some people have sparks and some don't. Non-playable characters, NPA.
NPCs. That leads...
NPC.
That reminds me. One of my friends told me that he found this chick online that claimed that she could see souls. And this chick made a claim that some people have souls and some don't. My question is, how do you know if you do or don't? Are people without souls doomed to lower existence? Do they not have a sense of right and wrong?
I think everybody has. If there's souls, everybody probably has one. Like
maybe there's only so many souls to go around.
Like this thinking within the Gnostics.
Maybe
it's sectarian thinking. Like everybody loves to call, your God the devil. My God's the real God. We have sparks of light. You have no sparks of light. Like it's sectarian thinking, and it's like the worst aspects of religion. That we have the truth, and these poor little shit-ons over here, they don't have the truth, and they're, regardless of being a soul with thoughts and feelings and a life experience, for whatever reason we fill in the blank, they're going to spend an eternity in hell or just non-existence.
Maybe that's why population control is a thing, to limit the amount of people so that everybody is guaranteed to have a soul. If there's only so many to go around, maybe we've overpopulated, and population control is put in place by the elites so that they can control the smaller number of people that are on the earth and keep us from achieving the true potential that we're meant to be as those who do have souls.
I would like to think if we have a soul, then that means we have we have a creator. If somebody created us, I'd like to think that he created all people for a purpose and not just some of them. It's all pointing towards something bigger, something greater that we're all part of.
So Judas, after this, has a vision. Judas said, "Master, as you have listened to all of them, now also listen to me, for I have seen a great vision." When Jesus heard this, he laughed again and said to him, "You 13th spirit, why do you try so hard? But speak up, and I shall bear with you." 13th spirit. What do you think that means? 13th out of what? The 12 disciples? The 12 brothers of Joseph? Or 11 brothers of Joseph, I mean. 12th spirit. It doesn't list what the other 12 spirits are. If Judas is the 13th.
Mm-hmm. I have heard people comment on this.
Judas said to him, "In the vision, I saw myself as the 12 disciples were stoning me and persecuting me severely. And I also came to the place where," missing text, "after you. I saw a house, and my eyes could not comprehend its size. Great people were surrounding it, and that house had a roof of greenery, and in the middle of the house was a crowd."
Could we pause?
Yes.
So we just found out something interesting. Within at least one vein of early Christianity, they had a belief that the other disciples were the ones that killed Judas. Because he's seeing that
that makes this make sense.
The author is like they're they're saying that all of this stuff as though it's true, like the visions of what the church is going to do, sacrificing and all the terrible stuff in the name of Jesus, and then him getting stoned. So at least in this vein, they believed that the disciples stoned Judas. That's at least the picture that's painted there. Which got me thinking.
Uh-oh.
In all the Gospels, when Judas betrays Jesus, he feels guilty, he gives back the money. And in all the Gospels, he kills himself.
Right.
He kills himself.
He hangs himself. It doesn't say he killed himself.
Yes.
Let's just be
himself.
Conspiratorial here.
But my point is that maybe that's all done to make a point. He killed himself. We didn't do it,
Like he sealed his own fate.
No. Like, maybe they legitimately did kill him. But in their story to paint themselves as more, peaceful, more passive people, to totally avoid,
See, there's this weird thing about that whole story, too. There's some discrepancies. Judas supposedly hung himself, but when it talks about the field of blood, which there's something else besides this I want to say about the field of blood, it says that Judas was walking along and fell headlong and his guts spilled open, and that is why it's called the field of blood. But it also says that when he threw his money in front of the Pharisees, that they took the money and couldn't use it for ministry because it was blood money. So they bought the field with it, and that's why it's called the field of blood. So what is it? And how did Judas fall and his guts spill out if he already hung himself?
I would say apparently the writers had two different opinions, or at least followed two different traditions of what happened.
Maybe he was stoned in the field by the disciples. We got like 3 versions of the story.
He was hung, and then they tied him down, threw him from the cliff, and then threw rocks at him.
He hung himself, and then they stoned him while he's hanging there by his neck.
Or they did all of that and then hung him.
And Bart Ehrman says something completely different, too.
What did Bart say?
He says that Judas perhaps swelled up so fat that he exploded in some kind of infectious disease, because there's some text that he's talking about that mentions Judas, his private parts swell up, and all right, this is gross for you listeners, so skip a minute ahead if you don't want to hear it. But these writers that Bart Ehrman points out says that his private parts swelled up, and he was so fat that you couldn't see his eyes over the fat that swelled over them. And when he peed, it was pus and worms that came out. And that he got so fat and sick that when he was in that field, he exploded and covered the entire field with his guts. And that is why it's called the field of blood. Because...
Interesting.
Yeah, so people that walked by, it wouldn't just be like Judas died way over there. Like, no, it was completely covered. It probably smelled bad. And it was like a notable thing in the area that this field was disgusting. So its name reflects that.
Do you remember the source for that?
No. It's in Bart Ehrman's book about the Gospel of Judas, if somebody wants to go find it. It's in the middle of the book somewhere. I don't want to flip through pages to look for it. So then... So great people were surrounding this house that had a roof of greenery, and in the middle of the house was a crowd, 2 lines missing of text, saying, "Master, take me in along with these people." Jesus answered and said, "Judas, your star has led you astray." He continued, "No person of moral birth is worthy to enter the house you have seen, for that place is reserved for the holy. Neither the sun nor the moon will rule there, nor the day, but the holy will abide there always, in the eternal realm with the holy angels. Look, I have explained to you the mysteries of the kingdom, and have taught you about the error of the stars." And missing text, send it, missing text, on the 12 aeons. So we have secrets of the universe here that are clear as mud. Your stars led you astray. So if this is an angel, it doesn't say that Judas had this vision from a star or an angel. He's just recounting the vision. Then Jesus, at the end of it, says, Judas, your stars led you astray.
It seems to be referring to that vision.
Yes, because right after that, he says, no one can enter this house. It's reserved for the holy. No one of mortal birth is worthy to enter the house you've seen. So I guess that would be us. So there's a house and we don't get to go in.
Mortal birth, but what about your spark, again?
True, once we transcend and we die, perhaps if the spark didn't come into being at birth, but it already was and came into your body when it was... Right.
Within all of us, yeah.
Then maybe it goes back up and your soul's not mortal, it's immortal. Well, I mean, I would assume it could be killed by a high enough God on this angelic
so maybe he was
spiritual hierarchy.
Maybe he's saying Judas is an NPC. He doesn't have a soul.
Oh my gosh. But he's a spirit, though, a 13th spirit.
I don't know what he's talking about there.
But if like we said, spirits and souls are different, then maybe there's no hope for Judas, because once the spirit departs, he just ceases to exist. He's just an empty shell with some kind of consciousness in it and no soul to go on beyond life. Interesting. So we're like halfway through this gospel. We're at 30 seconds away from an hour.
30 seconds away from an hour.
An hour already, yeah. I hope people aren't tired of me reading. My stuttering reading. So do you want to wrap that up here? And
yeah.
Pick that part 2 right in the middle of Judas next time?
I think this would be a good spot to stop. So, well, what'd you think of that?
That was strange, dog. I'm going to do a little more research for the next half, because I feel like I was reading and I'm seeing these things, but it's hard to understand. I mean, I definitely am not coming from a Gnostic background at all. I can only say what doesn't agree with the Bible, but...
On our first episode, you mentioned that there's some things about Gnostic Christianity that you've been learning that it makes a lot of sense.
Well, like the concept of heaven and hell and the different gods and Jesus actually being the snake and things like that. Our canonical Bible, I feel like, explains the traditional Protestant belief that's taught now, with only a few things to be questioned, but not fundamental things. And the Gnostic texts almost seem to make sense of everything else that is mysterious. However, when you do get into it, for the Christian, there's some dangerous ground there, because it does also take away from the value of Jesus' sacrifice. So, explore with caution, I guess. It has made me question some things, but I'm still holding on to the belief I had before, that I'm saved, because I believe there is a high God, and I'm trying my best to know the truth here and live according to it. And if Jesus is the way to get to heaven by the forgiveness of all the evil in your life, then cool, wash me clean. I believe in Jesus. I believe he was here. I believe he was the Son of God. I believe all that. It doesn't take things away from that. But the Gnostic beliefs do put into question if that sacrifice was actually worth it, or if it was more of a manipulation tactic, or if Jesus was just sent here to give us some information.
Well, we'll see in the upcoming episode that his death is more of a release. Returning
through
him
his death, he goes back.
Yeah,
to
back
his
to
realm,
where he came from after he revealed what he needed to reveal. That being said, the Gnostic view of Christ, the Gnostic Gospels, it's all very interesting, all very entertaining. I don't believe that's like the historically authentic Jesus. No way.
No, it's too different from everything else.
Yes. It's a development, a strange development in this strange world that we'll go into detail on this on the next episode, but Gnostic Christianity was huge at one point.
It was, but there's also a lot of church fathers that hated it.
Well, of course, yeah, of course.
So, like...
Because it was like, it's like comparing, in a lot of ways, it's like comparing Christianity to Islam.
Yeah, similarities, but major fundamental differences, yeah.
Yes, they have the same characters, same God, essentially, totally different narrative.
It makes you really wonder, man, who's got it right, you know? Because everybody likes to talk about, like, how the Bible can't be killed or gotten rid of. It's going to always be on this earth, readable, accessible until the end of time. There might be laws or governments that are against it, persecutions that happen because of it, but at the end of the day, we still have it and it's still here and still readable. So, that being said, so are the apocryphal books. So doesn't that just validate them also? The fact that they're still here, we've discovered them, they're readable, may have disappeared for a while, but they're back. Like,
so, all right, you're saying the perspective that the Bible is God breathed because we've had it it's survived, right? That's what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
That because the Bible is divinely inspired, like you said, and
well, I don't believe God breathed,
like you're quoting of that belief. Yes. If it's divinely inspired and it is the true message of hope, specifically the Gospels, then it obviously needs to be around. And though many efforts have been made to delete the Bible from existence, to burn all the copies, to get rid of everything, to hide it.
In a certain sense, I believe everything is divinely inspired. And by that, I mean, like,
that's a whole different conversation.
God, there's a creator that...
Should we just sum it up to the muse now?
No, that wasn't my point. It's like, I do believe everything has, like, a purpose. So, like, I think that with stuff that we have, the world is the way it is for a purpose. I think it is all pointing towards something greater. It's all building up towards something greater. So the Bible is around for that reason. I don't subscribe to the thought that it's survived is what makes it great, because, like, for large parts of history, people weren't even allowed to come at it with the inquisitiveness that we do, or the questions. And
we also have a wide sea of information to fish from.
They didn't have the tools, nor did they have the freedom to. We have the freedom and the tools.
It's the age of enlightenment, I guess.
And that's a great thing, that we have the ability to question things, and we have the ability to follow those questions and apply tools to those.
The curse of abundance. With more information accessible now than ever before, there's also more questions now than ever before.
I don't think that's a bad thing, though.
I don't either, but man, you can drive yourself crazy for trying to find some answers to these things. Speaking of which, I just wrote a song about some spiritual battles I've been going through, so Nate Visen on Spotify, remember that. Check it out. Yeah. It is called...
At least as a single.
I haven't come up with a name for it yet. I've just been calling it Eternity. I'll probably stick with that name.
Yeah. I enjoyed that. But back to your previous thought. If your goal is to find answers, you can also do it with the mentality of just to know, just to be aware, to experience, and to have awareness,
Learning is important at any stage.
Yes.
I think, no matter what. So, I guess let's wrap this up there. Unless you have some parting thoughts, nuggets of wisdom. I still think the moon landing was fake.
All information can be helpful to a certain extent, and It's all about how you use it and why you chase after it. Why do you want to know this? You know?
Security. Knowing what's after life on Earth. 'Cause, I mean, I'm sure we've all heard the pastors that say, and even I would say it too, you know, that if you're doomed to hell, as we know it is a lake of fire, suffering, torture, darkness, and solitude, right. I think solitude in a bad sense, then, like, yeah, everything on earth is worthless if that's your end. If you have a legacy left behind, what's it worth if you're going to sit there and suffer like that?
I think if you're looking for answers in that sense, then yes, it is going to be very taxing because it's all very mysterious. But if you're looking for answers on how to live a better life, a good life, abundantly, happily, the experience the one life that we know that we have for sure, to magnify the scope of that experience.
Don't take it for granted. Don't be a bad steward of the time you have. What do you want to do? What dreams do you have? You know? What legacy do you want to leave behind? Just focus on putting good out into the world.
Right. And those are the most important questions to ask. You know, I do think there is something greater after this existence that we live, but I think we should make the most out of this. And the most important information that we can gather is the information that helps us live life more abundantly here and now, you know. Stronger relationships, stronger love, stronger friendships, stronger
religious affiliation aside, living like Jesus.
Yes.
So,
and I think some answers can be found in just doing that, living the good life. That being said, till next time, my fellow strangers, let's keep traversing this strange world with curiosity, and let's remember to be neighborly, because everyone you encounter in this world is just another stranger in a strange land.
So stay inquisitive, stay curious, stay strange, and stay blessed.
And keep the
How
swag.
about that? Swag.
Yes.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yes. Until next time, peace.
Toodles.
If you would like to contact us, email us at peaceandtoodles@gmail.com. Until next time, salutations, my fellow strangers.
What will they think of next?